Hello. I am here with you today, guys, with another live. I know that a lot of you will be watching this video later, but I am happy to be here and have this opportunity to speak to you again on the weekly lives. As you're aware, this live is going to be about the effectiveness of psychotherapy and the reasons behind that. Why is it that psychotherapy is effective? If you are watching this video for the first time or you are new to my page, my name is Pejman Hoviadust. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am Iranian Australian. If you are Iranian, make sure you follow my Instagram page where I speak in Farsi or Persian and speak about most relevant topics about Iran and Iranian culture and the psychological issues that are related to that. And on this page, of course, I more target international audience, Australian people, or any country that you're from. But the purpose is to improve the general knowledge around psychology and to improve the mental health of people. So I'm gonna get to the point. Let's think about it for a second. There's a question here. Is psychotherapy effective? This is a very important question and a very interesting question, because when psychologists or practitioners themselves are asked to identify whether psychotherapy is effective, they often consider it by far less effective than what it actually is. So to give you the number, 80% of patients who go through psychotherapy and finish their treatment, they don't have early dropouts, end up with better symptoms, better quality of life than their counterparts who do not go through psychotherapy. And this is a great number. It shows, in medicine, that would be amazing number to say 80% improvement compared to people who do not go through psychotherapy. The biggest problem within the kind of field of psychotherapy is the high rate of dropout, which fluctuates between 25% to 45%, depending on different research and different treatment centers. So when we think about psychotherapy, the general answer is yes, psychotherapy is effective for around 80% of people who go through treatment. But the problem with psychotherapy is that patients do have high rate of dropout. So if you're a therapist and you're watching this, I think it's probably might be helpful for you to have a look at your rate of dropout and try to identify early on in treatments to be able to see the signs, to be open to feedback from your clients so that you can prevent this from happening. Because if patients continue with their therapy, they're likely to get better. So that was the first important point I wanted to speak to you. Then the second question is, why is psychotherapy effective? I mean, why the heck would I go and sit in front of another person while I have had so much suffering in my life from anxiety or depression or other problems and have conversation with another human being and end up getting better? It's really interesting. To add to that is that there are more than 500 different models of treatment. If we use a different brand of psychotherapy and look into adults and children and family approaches to psychotherapy, there are more than 500 different models of treatment. Is it possible that all these 500 models are being effective in a different way, are bringing about change in a different way? Or are there systematic general ways that psychotherapeutic approaches are effective? This is a very important debate in psychotherapy. There is a book on this topic by Wampold. It's an amazing book. It's named The Great Psychotherapy Debate. If you're a therapist, do yourself a favor and make sure you read it. It's amazing. But this debate in general has been going on for a very long time. I'll try to explain it for the general audience. You go to treatment and you might have heard that your therapist has a cognitive behavior therapeutic approach, or he does active acceptance commitment therapy, or myself, I do ISTDP, I do intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy. There are all these different models of treatment. Are all these models really making the patients better in different ways? Behavior therapy claims that, for example, exposure is the underlying mechanism that brings about change. Cognitive therapists may claim that by changing your distorted cognitions, they assist you to get better, or psychodynamically oriented therapists may claim that getting in touch with your underlying repressed emotions is the actual reason for change. So you can see that already we're talking about three different treatment approaches, and each of them claims that the patient gets better for a different reason. Now, lots of research has been done in this field, and psychologists and researchers have come up with some generalized factors, and they call this, meta theories, which means they're theories of theories. So they kind of look into it and say, all these treatment models seem to share some general factors that you need to have to be able to bring about change. And these factors have evolved over the years. Different researchers over the decades have come up with different ones. I'm a big fan of the ones that Wampold presents in his contextual model of treatment, and I'll try to present it here because it's the most research-backed, well-conceptualized way of looking at why does psychotherapy work. And does that then mean that all these different models are unimportant? Is it that we just got to learn those generalized factors? Or is it important how specific treatments like cognitive behavior therapy or ISTDP bring about change by themselves? So I try to summarize it very briefly and in the most simple way that I can. So in general, think about therapy being effective for three main reasons. There are three pathways of change that leads to patients getting better. Number one, Wampold claims, quite rightly, that there is something therapeutic within the relationship. We are ultra-social creatures. We thrive on our connection with one another. Throughout history, there have always been the shamans, religious figures, always there have been these healers in each culture, in each country. When you go and look at it, there's always been a person who has had the role of a healer. And there's something about that relationship, something about that connection that on its own is therapeutic. The ability to speak to another person who genuinely and compassionately cares and has empathy has some therapeutic components on its own. And that's important to emphasize. The second factor or second pathway of change is the expectation. Now, expectation is very massive field and area, of course. It entails, but it's not limited to, placebo effects, where just the idea of receiving a treatment might be 30% accountable for positive changes in people. And to explain it in the most simple way, the expectation refers to the process that each patient walks into your therapy, or if you're a patient listening to this, you walk into the therapy having a set of ideas or a form of conceptualization of your inner psychological difficulties. Each person has a theory of why they suffer the way that they do. And the therapist will listen to the patient's explanation of the problems and then will provide an alternative explanation to the patient, hopefully. Now, the degree to which the patient accepts therapist's alternative explanation will determine the expectation factor and how effective the therapy is going to be in that regard. So it's not important how well scientifically back my expectation is to my patients. It's more important how much does my patient buy my explanation? How much does it make sense to her? How much relatable to her or to him this theory is? So this is a very important one. It doesn't matter what treatment model you're operating from. What matters is to what degree does the patient believes and accepts your alternative explanation of the problems. And now we go to the third one, and that is that each treatment offers a very specific therapeutic set of actions. So you set a goal or and based on that goal, a therapeutic task. And to what degree that therapeutic task ends up being therapeutic becomes the third component and very specific component that leads to change. So this is where very specific treatment models start to compete with one another, because that is the component that, based on your theoretical model and above and beyond the quality of your relationship or the expectation factor, now you're getting involved with a therapeutic action. And to what degree is that therapeutic action actually therapeutic? So that becomes the third important ingredient. If you have a person who has severe form of anxiety or phobia from spiders, would gradual exposure to spider be actually therapeutic in a behavioral treatment for that phobia? It turns out yes. So for that very specific treatment, it may be very effective. So I thought this is a simple way to start to help you think about why does psychotherapy work, regardless of your approach to treatment. It doesn't matter what you do as a therapist. And if you're a patient or you're seeking therapy and you're watching this session, think about these factors when you walk into your therapist's office. How is the quality of the relationship? How much do you feel this person cares about you? How much do you feel it's relatable? How much is the person that you would like to spend time with? And these are not the most important factors, by the way, of the relationship. A good therapeutic alliance doesn't mean how much you like your therapist, but also means how much you accept the therapist understands your inner problems and can respond to them in a kind of contingent way or in a competent way. So the relationship on its own is therapeutic. The degree to which the therapist's explanation of the patient's problem makes sense to the patient, and to what degree is the therapeutic task actually therapeutic. These three factors together, alongside one another, is the underlying mechanisms that in the contextual model we approach it as the underlying or the kind of ultra or the kind of meta theory in which explains the process of change in psychotherapy. I hope you have enjoyed this video, those of you who are watching now, and for those of you who will watch it in the future, I hope you'll enjoy it. I feel like this video was fairly technical, and like the approach was about more complex processes in therapy, but I felt like I'm setting a task for myself. Would I be able to explain something that is fairly complex? Would I be able to explain it easily in a 10-15 minutes video? So let me know, did it make sense to you? Was it good to have a topic that is kind of more related to the psychotherapeutic processes? Or do you want to know more about everyday stuff, about the things that is happening, let's say, in our culture, in our society, here in Australia right now, and linking that to the psychological process? I'm really open to any of that. I want to thank you for your time, and I will see you again next week. See you guys.